Think redlining died in the 1960s? Think again. Redlining never stopped. It just got rebranded. Banks are still denying non-white communities access to fair credit from the 1930s until now. But no one teaches this in school. The redlining case files breaks it all down. Real cases, real consequences, and real receipts. Learn how redlining still shapes your community today. If you're white, non-white, or just care about justice, you need this guide. Download the redlining case files now. What's happening? Thank y'all for tapping into the Constructive House channel, where we promote balance between all people, guaranteeing that those that need the most help get the most constructive help in all areas of people activity. And today's segment is going to be from our Behind the Lines playlist, where we discuss lending discrimination and redlining, as we believe it is very constructive to bring you awareness of anyone who's practicing these actions. So today's violator, we got a company that goes by the name City National Bank, based out of Los Angeles County, California. Some may know them as the Bank to the Stars, but it looks like they got some nasty work going on at City National Bank. So nasty that they ended up having the largest settlement in Department of Justice history. Yes, the largest. And it looks like they may have gotten the largest discipline from the Department of Justice. We're going to take a look at it and see what they got going on, though. But first things first, let's go ahead and take a look at what the press conference has to say about them.
Los Angeles engaged in a pattern and practice of discrimination through redlining. Specifically, City National Bank avoided providing home loans and mortgage lending services to majority Black and Latino neighborhoods throughout Los Angeles. The illegal conduct that we allege in the complaint took place between 2017 and 2020. City National has agreed to resolve the government's lawsuit by entering into an agreement known as a consent order. This requires City National Bank to make numerous investments and take significant actions that will have a positive impact on Black and Latino neighborhoods. City National, as Assistant Attorney General Clark mentioned, has agreed to spend more than $31 million to address these inequities.
This is historic in terms of this marking the largest redlining settlement that the Justice Department has secured with respect to a bank or lender.
So just like the feds told you, City National Bank had to get that DP. They were disciplined for redlining, which has been illegal since the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which made it unlawful for lenders to deny services based on race, color, or national origin or religion. And redlining is a discriminatory practice where financial institutions avoid providing services like mortgages to residents in predominantly non-white neighborhoods, regardless of their financial qualifications. And like I always like to let y'all know, redlining is not about someone who's not qualified getting some sort of preferential treatment, but it's about two qualified applicants. One is being discriminated on because of the color of their skin, and in some cases their race, national origin, religion, ethnicity, etc. But it's discriminating on someone based on factors outside of financial qualifications. And that's why they got a DP. That's why they're being disciplined. And the crazy thing about it is City National Bank is often referred to as the Bank to the Stars due to the high profile celebrity clientele that they have. So they got a lot of accounts with all the celebrities out there in Hollywood. They're based out of LA. And despite having all these wealthy individuals, including many prominent Hollywood figures, the bank found some way to discriminate and practice with discriminatory lending practices that essentially ignored majority Black communities in LA County. This is a classic example of redlining. where lenders deliberately avoid or offer unfavorable terms to certain people in certain geographic areas based on race or ethnicity. And it's crazy that we keep coming across more and more cases, and I'm going coast to coast. Make no mistake about it, I'm going coast to coast. We own a bumper, because what you will not do is continue in 2020 nothing to keep doing the same things that y'all did almost 100 years ago when the Homeowners Loan Corporation set up, established, maintained, and expanded redlining, which is lending discrimination at its finest, creating maps, drawing a red line around people's neighborhoods and saying that they are not worthy. That's all they really did, is said they're not worthy. And if you check out my Legacy Law series, you'll see that most of the areas that had this red line drawn around them were actually affluent neighborhoods. But the Homeowners Loan Corporation somehow said they were hazardous, and they used that as a blueprint to build all kind of toxic waste plants, to build all kind of plants, to build all kind of nonsense in these communities, all while devaluing their appraised value to ensure that they decimated those communities and widened the generational wealth gap between whites and non-whites. And you see the lingering effects of it now. And the most egregious act that came from this was the Freeway Act, where they put 95, I-10, 110. Every freeway you see right now is running through what was once a black community, because the Homeowners Loan Corporation, headed by President Franklin Roosevelt way back in the 1930s, decided to create maps to decimate non-white communities, or as some may say, black communities. So we got to make sure that we're paying close attention to this. And my job is to constructively bring awareness to this. So we want to go ahead and break down some of the key facts of the investigation. So the Department of Justice's investigation revealed some nasty work from City National Bank. Looks like it unveiled some systemic redlining that spanned from 2017 to 2020, with the bank's discriminatory practices having a significant impact on communities of color in Los Angeles County. Some of their key findings included they had 0 branches in majority black or Hispanic neighborhoods. Yes, I said 0. This is nasty work. Another key finding was lack of mortgage loans. Nasty. They had no meaningful marketing or outreach, which we went over before. Not having any marketing and not providing any outreach programs to those communities is also redlining, not just denying them because of their color. And another key finding I see here was a disproportionate lending patterns. So like I said before, they always look at how you're lending compared to your peers who are doing the same thing in the same area. And if they see it's disproportionate, where you're lending more to one group and not the other, the DOJ is on you. They're on you. So taking a look at not having any branches in black neighborhoods, which is just the most dishonorable, despite the large population and market potential in black and Hispanic areas. City National Bank did not open a single branch in these neighborhoods, not one branch. In fact, the bank had no physical presence in the areas where black and Hispanic residents lived, further limiting their access to mortgage services. And like I said earlier, I could have sworn that banks were in it to make money, and the only color they saw was green. And the way you can make way more money is to lend more loans out to people. Like, that's how this system works when you're talking about financial lending, especially in the home ownership and home lending departments. So how do you have ton of market potential and you just decide to avoid them and not be considered redlining? It makes no sense, and it's deliberate. You can see it, and it was so egregious and so nasty and oh so non-constructive that the DOJ, yes, the feds, had to step in and issue a discipline to them for this. It's ridiculous. I mean, 0 branches, 0. Like, do you not want to make money? You're literally out here discriminating on folks. That's crazy. So let's take a look at the lack of mortgage loans, which is just exactly what we're talking about here. City National made fewer mortgage loans in black and Hispanic neighborhoods than any of its competitors. See, they evaluate your peers. The bank's lending was heavily concentrated in predominantly white, affluent areas, leaving communities of color with limited or no access to home ownership opportunities. Even though Non-white communities represented a substantial portion of the population. The bank's loan application and approval rates were extremely low in these areas, which means they didn't want to give them nothing. They were perfectly fine with having all the celebrities, your Ben Afflecks, your whomever. I'm just throwing names out there. They were fine with all the Hollywood clientele, and they're going to make it like, oh, well, we just didn't need the other clientele. Nonsense. Because there's no reason you would leave money on the table. We're talking about the banks. Why would the bank leave money on the table? Why would you leave money on the table when you got a whole population ready, looking to buy homes? You got all kind of programs they're unaware of, which goes to my next point that I see from the DOJ's investigation. No meaningful marketing or outreach. And it looks like the investigation also found that the bank did not engage in meaningful marketing or outreach efforts to inform non-white communities about home loan opportunities. Yes, some of y'all may not know, but there are classes that are conducted in your local communities that tell you about the different programs that are available. They call that outreach programs, outreach efforts. They'll tell you about the different ways you can obtain a loan. They'll give you classes on mortgage responsibility. Some of y'all may not even know that exists because of people like City National Bank not letting you know that it's there. They'll send those mailers and they'll send emails to the white communities and leave non-white communities out the loop, where you have no idea. Some of y'all don't even know about debt to income ratios. Some of y'all don't know about loan to value ratios. Some of y'all don't know about how much reserves you should have. Some of y'all don't know anything about your credit risk, credit worthiness, none of that. But you do know that there's banks out there. This is crazy work, and they needed to get a discipline for this. This is ridiculous. Now, it looks like there's another point going on here, that they had disproportionate lending patterns. And from what I see here, the bank's mortgage loan patterns were disproportionately concentrated in white, wealthy neighborhoods, with the bank failing to engage in areas that had high percentages of non-white residents, and in particular, Black and Hispanics. And this pattern of neglect further entrenched racial disparities in home ownership and access to financial services. And like I've said several times, and I'll never stop saying it, to build generational wealth, it's always going to start with home ownership. You have to be owning stuff. And one of the easiest ways for your common working class or middle class person to generate generational wealth is through home ownership. You can pass the equity down to your children. You can pass the home down to your children. You can pull out against that equity and make down payments to buy other homes. Like, there's a lot that you can do and leverage when it comes to owning a home. And I don't understand why other people think that this is something that's not a big deal. This is a huge deal. City National Bank is the most dishonorable. It's disgusting work. And taking a look here, the Department of Justice agrees with me. Now, will they hold them to the fire and actually make them follow through? Or is this just a money grab where they're just going out giving slaps on the wrist and collecting money from all the banks? Because my suspicions are that they might just be slapping it on the wrist. You pay me and we'll issue out some lightweight fines, and we'll issue out some lightweight punishment, and we'll say we did something. See, we're out here and we're going about investigations, and we're putting them to the task here. Yeah, we're going to uphold the law. But are you upholding the law? Because that would mean sticking to them and making sure that they're following through with the discipline that you said you're giving out. So let's take a look at some of this discipline. So it looks like City National Bank entered a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice for $31 million, which is considered the largest redlining settlement in DOJ history. And that settlement included $29.5 million going towards a loan subsidy fund, which it looks like for that's the majority of the settlement. It was earmarked for a loan subsidy fund. This was specifically designed to help Black and brown home buyers in LA County, and the goal was to provide more accessible home loans to people in these historically underserved communities. And like I said, I don't know how they quantify that. How do we go and make sure that they're following through on this? I mean, loan subsidies, how do we know they're not just going to give that back to the celebrities that they've been giving lending to this whole time? We really don't know. Like I said, I don't know how they quantify that outside of putting it on their website, maybe sending some mailers out to say we're doing this, but then you go apply and you're still getting denied and you're not getting notified of any subsidies in the area. They're not telling you, hey, they're not proactively. Look, I worked for several mortgage bankers, brokers, and banks. We will cold call and reach out to you to let you know, hey, we got the HARP loan. Hey, we got this program. Hey, we got that program. But they're calling in certain zip codes and not calling other zip codes. And these folks won't even know that there's relief programs out there, that there's programs where they can pull cash out of their house at lower rates. They're never getting notified of these things. And my suspicion is if the Department of Justice and the CFPB are holding true to what they're saying, that they're going to go out and go hard on this redlining, there are a ton of banks they need to be taking a look at, because I've worked for some of them. And you realize after time that you're only calling the same type of clientele. And I realize that. So that's why I'm bringing awareness to those who may not be familiar with this. But back to the discipline. So they out of that 31 million, they also are going to be attributing 1.75 million for community outreach and consumer education. Again, another thing that I don't know how we the people can quantify this, but the settlement also required the bank to allocate 1.75 million to community outreach and consumer education efforts, as this was aimed at informing Black and Hispanic communities about available mortgage products, ensuring that they had information needed to apply for loans and become aware of their rights. So I want to know who is doing this homework to ensure that City National Bank is actually holding true to what they settled and agreed on. Because this is a part of their discipline, is they're supposed to be out here giving community outreach and educating. Are you holding classes online, LinkedIn? Like, where can we go find this outreach? Are you just sending a flyer in the mail and telling people and then that's it? This is what I'm saying. I don't believe that they're really cracking down on this for real. I feel that it could be a money grab type of situation, but we're going to keep bringing all awareness in the most constructive way, because the goal is to promote balance between people. Nobody way up here and you down there. We're all on the same level. So let's take a look at another discipline they got here. Looks like they were told they needed to do some branch expansion, seeing that they had 0 branches in Black communities. Zero branches. That's ridiculous. You can't, that's classic redlining. You're saying, I don't even want to be near you. I don't want to help you. I don't want to take your money. I don't even want to be in the same vicinity as you. Disgusting work. City National, the most dishonorable. So it looks like as a part of the settlement, City National Bank was required to expand its physical branches into underserved neighborhoods. This expansion was intended to ensure that the bank could better serve Black and Hispanic communities by having a more accessible presence in areas where it had been previously absent. So, my folks out in LA County, that's my home state. Y'all let me know if y'all see any more banks in your area. I don't even know how you can quantify that outside of looking it up yourself. But like I said, I'm a little more focused on the community outreach and the more favorable terms and just lending in general. And it doesn't look like that's something that they were doing before. Let's see if this settlement, which was the largest at the time in 2022 or 2023 rather, let's see if they hold true to this. So another discipline here as a part of a settlement agreement was